got a thunderstorm going on. We have a flood warning. Got my black cat with me. There's lightning crashing in the background. Nothing seems, bye buddy, like a better time to do a black, or death metal rather, album review than right now. So, without further ado, Opeth, Pale Communion. This will be my album review. I brought Cash back, my cat, because I actually started getting requests from people that wanted Cash to be a part of more videos. Maybe it's because they thought it was funny that he tried to knock my computer off of the stand the entire time. So whatever. But he's running around. He'll maybe wake his way back here when he feels like it. Maybe not. Who knows? He's a cat. So anyway, let's get into some Opeth history while I'm waiting. Opeth is actually a Swedish heavy metal band from Stockholm, Sweden. Who knew? They're formed in 1990, though the group, of course, like every death metal band, has gone through tons of lineup changes. The one person that has stayed in the lineup the entire time is singer-songwriter Michael Ederfeldt. And one of the things about him when I saw him live is he looks like the angrier cousin to Jeff Foxworthy. If you're a little bit more cool, the cool cousin to Jeff Foxworthy. He's just a normal-looking dude, but he's got this range and crazy musical talent. He's the driving force, of course. There are progressive, folk, blues, classical, jazz influences through all their albums, death metal, black metal. Anymore, they've sort of shifted away from the black and death metal areas into more of an avant-garde style prog metal stuff, but it's still really good, so we love them for it. Their early works are especially heavy. The dynamic shifts always have been a part of it, including the death growls, but especially with Blackwater Park in 2001, but this is all new. This one is all the progressive stuff all thrown into one. So when they started off, it was actually a death metal band. They were basically just all death metal all the time. All death metal all the time. And the band's name was driven from a word Opeth, which is taken from William Smith of Thunberg in his novel. It's actually a fictional politician city in South Africa, which is translated to City of the Moon. That's the name they get, Opeth. They took it as Opeth, and that's the name of the band. They recruited drummer Anders Nordin and bassist Nick Doring and guitarist Anders Dimino at that time in 96 or 94, 5 I guess it was. And even though they were unsatisfied with Opeth's slow progress, they actually, a couple of them, Dymo, left during the earliest places and was replaced by guitarist Kim Patterson and John and DeFaria on bass. After the next show, DeFaria left Opeth to spend time with his girlfriend in Germany. You may notice a pattern here. This continues for a long time, but when you get to the actual history, their first album, Orchid, was actually put out in 1994 in April. It was produced by Dan Swino, and they had problems with the newly formatted Candlelight Records, and the album was almost not released, and it was only released in Europe. Orchid tested the boundaries of traditional death metal and featured acoustic guitars and piano as well as clean vocals, which was unheard of at that time. After that, they went on to a few live shows in the United Kingdom. After that, Opeth returned to the studio in '96 to work on their second album. The album was titled Morning Rise and was released in Europe in '96 with only 5 songs but lasting 66 minutes. Welcome to the future of Opeth. The longest song was a 20-minute Black Rose Immortal. It was a huge success, and AllMusic was giving them 4 stars. They toured in the UK in support of it, and they were everywhere. They went on tour with Cradle of Filth. They were attention of Century Media Records, who signed them immediately, and they actually got their first 2 albums released in the United States. So that was a major thing for them. Following that, we get to an even bigger period because they actually got to tour with Iron Maiden on A Call of Irons. And there we got to Still Life, which came out in '98, and Blackwater Park, the beloved, amazing best record of them, one of the best records of all time, in 2001. And there's a lot more after that, but to keep things brisk, let's get on to the actual album review, because everybody that knows Opeth, and people that don't know them at all. I don't know. Okay, maybe a little bit more. They actually work with, I don't know if you know, most people don't, they work with Steven Wilson, who's Porcupine Tree's the singer, on Blackwater Park, which is one of the interesting things because it's one of those albums that people love but don't necessarily know a lot about. And they're one of their heaviest albums yet. It's keeping in tradition with the limits of black and death metal. They shattered the conventional songwriting of death metal at that point. In support of Blackwater Park, they opened their first world tour and headlined Europe for the first time, appearing at festivals all around the world. Following that, Deliverance, Damnation, let's see, there's so many other ones. And you go through Ghost Revelries in 2007, Watershed, and then in 2011 they came up with one of their least, it was polarizing, let's just say, Heritage. And following that, Pale Communion, here, now, whoa! So let's talk about the album itself. Got my write-up here. So one of the things about writing a review for Opeth is that you gotta mention that most, like, metal purists hate Opeth because Opeth decides that they're getting bored with the heavy sound and they want to do something that makes interesting music happen. Decided to do transitional periods of time when they went into Heritage, their last album, and they were all over the place, just exploring with like classical genres and stuff, and it was just difficult for some metal purists to love, which I am not a metal purist. I'm wearing a Paul McCartney shirt, if you couldn't tell. I like all types of music, and that is why I love this band, because they are unpredictable. They're just great for that. You can say that they don't even have a usual style, but this album sticks to a usual theme throughout the album, and it's more grounded than the last. They don't really care when anyone thinks of them, including their own fans. They even say that during the shows. We're going to switch from the heavy for a while. Deal with it. They make music that's as weird as they want it, and I think that they're better off for it. The album opens here with Eternal Rains Will Come. It's a huge opener, and it comes on with a guitar solo and a huge progressive sound. Includes an organ, which I thought was really cool. The rhythms of the song, like every progressive giant, they change about every 20 seconds, as does the instrument and the intensity of the music, so it just jumps all over the place. At one point, there's even a flute solo that comes out of nowhere with an acoustic piano, of all things, with it. The multi-layered vocals don't even come in until about 3 minutes in, and the song finishes with this amazing combination of guitar and organ solo. It's amazing, and it sets the tone for what kind of album this is going to be, which is just a batshit crazy, amazing progressive metal album. Guess what? If you don't like it, don't listen. That's what it is, though. The second song, Cusp of Eternity, is this very Middle Eastern feel to it, which includes soaring vocals, some ridiculously soaring vocals, and they have this huge, heavy guitar and bass lines, some metal stuff for you, metal purists, and they're hugely heavy compared to the previous song. The song chugs along and brings you to a metal show in the Egyptian pyramids. I like to think of that, just a metal show in the Egyptian pyramid era. That would be so cool. Then we get to the Meg piece, the epic, the prog epic that is pretty much this whole album's centerfold. Moon Above, Sun Below. It's the longest song on the album, and it clocks in at about 11 minutes. It's truly an epic. It's got 5 sections, and it reminds me sort of like Rush's 2112, which is a huge compliment. Usually a new section is brought in with like a fade out and a new instrument bringing in, like it's quiet horns, quiet accordion, not accordion, but you know what I mean. Something that you haven't heard in the previous section coming out of nowhere. That's when that's a new section of this. It's great. I love it. It's one of the biggest, hugest prog songs in a long time. The song has been said to describe going through the 5 stages of grief. And I actually hear it. You've got some anger in there. You've got some acceptance. I mean, you can go through it yourself, but I heard that it's got a very different feel to each section, and I think that's really cool. 5 sections, 5 stages of grief. Think of the instruments, though, that need to do this. I would love to hear it live. I want to hear it live because of the instruments that they do with this section. It's featuring so much. Organs, trumpets, vibraphones, holophones, tons more. Instruments that you have to look up on Wikipedia. It's like, does that exist? Is this a fake instrument? I don't know. Are you messing with me? But they're real. Next up is Elysian Woes, which is, again, Opeth's version of a ballad. It's a mostly acoustic instrument song, but it has horns featured in before it goes amping up into this huge electric guitar section where dueling guitar lines near the end. And I mean by amping up is it's not actually heavy, but they do go from a really, really quiet to like a medium around there. Goblin is next, and it's one of the best songs on the album, and it's an instrumental battle, at least I think it is. It reminds me of that because it's like a battle for the song's genre, whether it's going to be hard rock or it's going to be jazz fusion. And it's like hard rock, jazz fusion, all the way through to the entire song finishes, and it's just awesome. It really is. It kind of reminds me of older Yes albums, and for any progressive nuts out there, that's a very good thing as well. Following that, there's River. It's an absolutely beautiful song. To me, it felt like a metal band that attempted to create a classical piece, and it was an amazing success. It is some of the most beautiful harmonies and soaring vocals I've heard in a long, long time, since like The Wall, that long. The highlight of this song is a huge guitar solo, and again, when I mean huge, it's just the fact that it's so different from everything you hear here. It comes out of nowhere, and encompasses the song. It's just great. Voice of Treason is the strongest, is the strangest, not strongest. It's the strangest song on here because it's kind of like, again, the Mideastern feel, but it's all intervals. So it's like short pieces of weird music that come out of nowhere, and they're all Mideastern, and they're all weird, and they all have random instruments that they shift in pace and theme and sound and intensity, and it just kind of goes everywhere and nowhere all at once. And it's great, but it's weird as hell. Again, it makes tons of highlighted things on here, like they use strings and horns and organs and even a mellotron, which the Wikipedia joke, I actually had to look up what a mellotron was because I had no idea. After that, we go into the final song, Faith in Others, the album's closer. It takes a hugely different approach to the song before it and has a very minimalistic approach with instruments. It's very few instruments that features quiet vocals until about the halfway point when it builds and builds and begins to go batshit crazy again. About 3/4 of the way through, you find yourself in the middle of what I think is like a metal orchestra. I picture like Michael, the singer, at the center of it, just singing his heart out, conducting this orchestra, and this huge blowing section, and then it just sort of fades into what it was at the very beginning of the song. It's ending the way it starts. This album shows the fact that no other band sounds like Opeth. I mean, not even other progressive metal bands. Like, you think Dream Theater, you think just other bands, and they just don't sound anything like this. There's no more versatile creative band in existence, in my opinion. They can do and will do anything. They can play anything. You never know what you're going to get with an Opeth album, which in my mind as a music lover is amazing. You just love that different thing because I get bored with the same sound, and they do as well. So we're both in the same boat. Blow my mind again, Opeth. I would love to see them play with an orchestra one day because it would be nuts. Most likely, this is probably going to be my album of the year because I can't picture any album topping this unless it's like not Foo Fighters put out, maybe the best album of their career. They may have a shot at topping it. Otherwise, you're looking at the best album of the year right here. Opeth's Pale Communion. Check it out, seriously. It's intense and amazing in every way. Listen to it once. And then go listen to it about 20 more times until you can fully comprehend all this shit that goes on this album. Again, 5 out of 5 stars. I can't recommend individual tracks. Just listen to the whole album. Seriously. Whole album, man. It's a thing. Thanks for listening. I got another one right now.